Welcome to another very exciting, very special edition of the New York State Halls of Fame podcast. I am Leonard Aberman, along with my co-hosts Rene LeRoux and Jeff Cohen. We've got a great one for you. Today we have the privilege of welcoming one of the most influential architects in New York hockey history. Our guest is Neil Smith. He's a Stanley Cup winning executive whose vision, leadership, and bold decision-making helped shape an era of hockey that Ranger fans will never forget. As general manager of the New York Rangers from 1989 to 2000, Neil built the team that ended a 54-year championship drought, culminating in the unforgettable 1994 Stanley Cup victory. It is one of the most celebrated moments in New York sports history. Beyond that championship, his career has spanned every corner of the game. Player, scout, executive, owner, coach, broadcaster, and ambassador for hockey. His impact extends far beyond a single season. Neil's eye for talent, his willingness to make bold moves, and his commitment to building winning organizations have left a lasting mark on the National Hockey League and on hockey, especially throughout New York State. It is only fitting that this year he joins an esteemed group of legends as an inductee into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2026. Neil, congratulations on this well-deserved honor, and welcome to the New York State Halls of Fame podcast.
Well, thank you, first of all, for all those kind words. And as you were speaking, it just came to me for the first time that all the championships that I've been involved with, that would be 2 with the Islanders, 2 with the Adirondack Red Wings, and of course 1 with the Rangers. They've all taken place in New York State. Every time I've won, I've been in New York State. So this is a wonderful honor. I'm happy to be here on the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to the ceremony.
Rene, is Rene with us? I see.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Why don't you begin? Because you know what, Neil? Rene is the founder of the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame.
Neil, the cup, when you won, did you think you were going to win? Was it nervous? Were you nervous?
I was petrified most of the playoffs because you have no control. But I did think that we had a good shot to win that year. We were the best team in the regular season. We had beaten New Jersey every time we played them. They were the second best team in the entire league. And it just seemed a thing of a destiny, but it was never going to be done easily. The Rangers can't do anything easy. They've got to make it very difficult and sit on the edge of your seat. And that's what we did to our fans right up till Game 7 and winning it 3-2.
Neil, when you were after the induction, you said you won a couple of championships with the Islanders. And researching you, I saw that you had a relationship with the great Al Arbour. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I got drafted by the Islanders. And I was working in New York in another whole job, missing hockey like crazy. And I said to Jimmy Devellano, their chief scout, we went out to dinner one night, and I said, isn't there anything I could do for the Islanders? Can't I just go to the Ranger games where they can't possibly go and scout the opponents? And there wasn't the satellite and all that we have today. And Jimmy said, well, let me talk to Al about that. I don't know if we have anybody doing that. So he talked to Al Arbour. Next thing I knew, Al Arbour wanted to meet me, which scared me because he was the great Al Arbour. And we sat down and I started to do pregame scouting. So I was scouting opponents coming in. He liked my work. I started to go all over the place. And for that year, that was 80, 81 when they beat Minnesota. I didn't get paid. I did it for free just to get my foot in the door.
Neil, hockey is... It's a beloved sport, but the fan base of hockey is rabid. It's a rabid fan base. It may not be the biggest sport in New York, But I remember the year that the Rangers won the Cup. And it was like everybody in New York was a hockey fan. It was unbelievable how that team captured the hearts of this city. And I can't even imagine what you felt like, because it must be like when the Cubs, I know that was 100 years, but when the Cubs in baseball won the World Series for the first time. I mean, you did something that people thought was almost impossible. There were people that didn't think it was ever going to happen. You describe the emotion when you won, like the first emotion that you felt when you won the Stanley Cup.
I mean, it was surreal, to be honest with you. You know, I was most of the time up in a box that I had way up in the ceiling for the game. And then I had gone. My wife was down there, and we had that icing with a 1.3 seconds to go or something against us. And everybody was nervous that they could score. And I just kept telling them, they never score in this situation. They never score. They'll never score. They'll never score. But it was mostly to tell myself to calm down. But I was really telling them. It was very surreal. It was like a dream. And I knew at the time that we had done something that many, many people thought couldn't be done. And I just was, so thrilled at that opportunity, or to be part of that. And of course, you can say all that stuff was the architect and all that, but I really just felt lucky to be part of it too, because I knew it was historic. I knew how difficult it is to win at Madison Square Garden, and it's thrilling. It's emotional. It's a lot of different things. You end up with all different emotions coming through.
Rene?
What was the season like? Were you gaining momentum, confidence? Did you always think it could happen?
Well, I thought we had a team the year before that was a good team, and unbelievably, we'd missed the playoffs. That was after winning the President's Trophy 2 years earlier. So I hired Mike Keenan, and I really thought we had the player personnel to win, and we made changes during the season. The season was a little bit up and down in the very beginning, and then just up. I mean, we just went on a tear. And so it really looked like we were the elite team in the league, and people were telling us that. And of course, anything that can go wrong. You saw the Colorado Avalanche this year was just an amazing, dominant team in the league, and got knocked out 4 straight by Vegas. Anything can happen. But I thought that if there was a year that we were going to do it, it was going to be that year.
During that time, not only were the Rangers going to the finals, the Knicks also were pretty good. So Madison Square Garden was a happening place. As GM, were you involved in kind of the scheduling, or how did that work out? Because they're both going to the finals around the same time. Could you tell us how that worked out?
Well, that's mainly with the league and the building people, because of when is the building available? When does TV want to do the games? There's all those complications. It really, I don't remember being really involved with that. I'm sure I was told right away, here's when the games are going to be. But you're right. It was an electric building for those for that month of June. It was just crazy, and the whole city. And we didn't have social media, thank God. So the only thing that you had to listen to were callers on WFAN and things like that. That was your social media. But the Knicks going and almost winning, and us winning, and you thought maybe both would do it. And I was close with Dave Checketts, who ran the Knicks. And I was hoping for them. I went to Game 7 in Houston along with a lot of the executives at MSG. Unfortunately, they didn't get that game. But the other thing that was going on at that exact time too, which isn't as pleasant a memory, is the O.J. Simpson
Oh yes.
thing was at the
Right.
exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had all these crazy things going on at the same time. But the Garden, that was probably in the last 100 years, that had to be the best time at the Garden because of both teams being so good at the same time.
Neil, New York has a history, but it's not littered with. I mean, it's littered with people that make predictions, but predictions that come true and big predictions. I mean, we've got Joe Namath predicting a Super Bowl win. Mark Messier predicting the Stanley Cup win. Mark Messier, one of the greatest athletes this city has ever known. When you brought him in, you knew there was something special about him. But did you know that, I mean, he took it up a notch. He took that team on his back. And what is it about a player like that? What makes him so special, and what did it take to get him in here?
Well, at the time, Edmonton had financial problems. So they were, Glenn Sather was asking me for a while, about Mess. And of course, everybody thought Mess might be near the end because he had played so much hockey. He was 30 years old and had played a ton of hockey, both for the Oilers, for Team Canada's all the time, All-Stars, everything he'd been involved in. But he was a thoroughbred when we got him in, and he's a stubborn guy, and I'll tell you, he's stubborn in the right way. He knows what it takes to win, and he's not going to accept anything else. And that's in the locker room with his teammates and with the guys he plays with. And he said to me once, it took us a while to get everybody to understand what it was going to take to win, but we did it. I think Mark really, he believes what he believes, and you're not going to get him to change. And that stubbornness, I think, led us all the way to the Cup. And for sure, he was the most important piece. Obviously, Brian Leetch won the Conn Smythe. Brian Leetch was perhaps the most talented player, if you ask Mark. But Mark was the leader. Mark was the guy that, as you said, carried everybody on his back across the finish line.
He had heart. I mean, what a heart he had. Unbelievable. I mean, because then a couple of years later, I guess it was, you brought in Wayne Gretzky as well. And I mean, if the two of them were in their prime, that you would have had a few more cups. Unfortunately, I guess it didn't work out. But to have them both on the same team with the Rangers, what was that like, having Gretzky and Messier play here?
I mean, first of all, with Wayne, I was in awe of Wayne because of the player that he was. He's younger than me, but I was just a big fan of his, meaning not cheering for him or anything, but just mesmerized by how good he was and that he was the Babe Ruth of hockey. That was my opinion. And I always said, can you imagine if Wayne Gretzky played in New York, how big he'd be? If he's this big playing in Edmonton, imagine how big he'd be if he played in New York. So the day that I was able to give him a jersey with his number and name on the back was probably other than the Stanley Cup, was the biggest highlight of my career. Because I was handing Michael Jordan, Babe Ruth, whoever you want to talk about, I was handing them a jersey to join the New York team, and I brought the guy to New York. I couldn't be more proud of that. And so when we had them both on the team, it was a wonderful year. They were only together for the 1 year. We went to the Final Four. We had so many injuries, we weren't able to advance past Philly, and then Philly went down to Detroit 4 straight. But it was just amazing to have these guys. We also had Luc Robitaille at the same time too, as another Hall of Famer. So we had a lot of Hall of Fame guys run through the Rangers during the 90s.
Rennie?
What was it like being in Glens Falls?
Oh, that was fun. I mean, that actually was just fun. That was all fun. Working with the American League team and being successful and going towards the championship and then winning it. And there's no downside when you're running, a team like that, because if you don't win, people don't hate you. They don't. They're not mad at you. And when you do win, they're just joyful and happy. I love the town of Glens Falls. I loved staying at the Queensbury Hotel. Going downtown to some night spots that I knew about, and I love the Glens Falls Civic Center. It was just a lot of fun. I was GM of that team from '85 to '89, and in that time we won the 2 championships and had a lot of fun. And I got to work with Bill Dineen, who was another guy besides Bill Torrey, Al Arbor. It was Bill Dineen who taught me about winning and how important it was. And I think I took all those messages with me when I went to the Rangers.
You used to pack them in Glens Falls every game. It was
Yeah, it
always
was
packed.
good. Yeah, it was for a little town like that, and for how bad the weather can get in the wintertime. But they still showed up. And they were rabid fans. They were great fans.
A couple weeks ago, probably less than 2 weeks ago, Stan Fischler wrote an article about you in the Hockey News, calling you the tribute to the unsung Rangers hero of yesteryear, Neil Smith. And when Stan Fisher writes about you, you spent something special.
Yeah, Stan, I've known Stan for a long, long time. And he wasn't always a big fan of mine, I think, because he wasn't a fan of the Rangers, because he used to be the Devils guy and the Islanders guy. And but I think we're close now. Him and my partner on the podcast, Vic Morin, are very close. Vic was an intern for him like almost half the world. So Stan is an amazing guy. At his age, he's still so sharp. He's in his 90s, lives in Israel, still keeps up with everything going on in the league, still writing. A sense of humor, as you all know, is sharp wit that he has, and sometimes off-color jokes that he'll come out with.
Neil, you mentioned a podcast that you have, so it would be a perfect time for you to tell us a little bit about it, as you're on a podcast talking about your podcast. What's going on with that?
Ours is called NHL Wraparound, and I do it with Vic Morin, and we're on almost every day, especially during the playoffs, because we do Stanley Cup Date, it's called, where we update what's going on. And today we had Jim Montgomery on the show and talked to him. He's the head coach of St. Louis. Talked to him about his perspective on the playoffs and what he thought, and about several other things. And I'm very lucky because 99.9% of the people that I asked to come on with us. We've done 100 NHL wraparound full shows, and then we've done about 200 other things like Hall of Fame and celebrity shows. We're really having a lot of fun with it. We're getting a lot of good feedback. We're up to about 8,000 downloads a month, which it keeps going up. But as you guys know, podcast is it's a long game. It's not a quick game. You're not going to get there quickly. You've got to work at it. We've been working at it since January 30th of 24. So just a little over 2.5 years. Our first guest was Wayne Gretzky. Our 100th guest was Gary Bettman. And so it's great. And the big thing about it is it's fun and I enjoy it. And so I'm not making money at it right now. I mean, that's okay. It's enjoyment, keeps me involved, keeps me concentrating on every game. And so I love it.
Very nice. You were drafted obviously out of college to be a hockey player, and you spent some time in the minor leagues of hockey. I'm always curious because, you hear a lot about minor league baseball. You always, all the cities that, have their minor league teams, and it's a big deal in the summer. But I don't think you hear as much about minor league hockey. And I'm just wondering, how is that like playing minor league hockey? Are there, you mentioned before rabid fans, and I said rabid fans. We seem to hockey fans are rabid. Are minor league teams loved in the cities that you play in, and do you feel, is there a great I would say longing or great delight in watching these minor league teams play by the fans?
There really is. It's a whole different game for all the sports. I think when you're in the minors and when you're in the majors. In the minors, they have to entertain families and young kids and children and mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers, and so there's a lot of extra stuff going on at a hockey game other than just the hockey game, and long bus rides, and I mean, it's sort of like this, like you're playing hockey. How bad can it be? You get to play hockey and you're getting paid. It's a lot, I never played in the NHL, so I don't know that feeling. I just know the feeling about running the team in the NHL or scouting for NHL players. But I can tell you that I enjoyed all my time in the minors. That the players that are there are playing. They love the game. They're not in it for the money because they're not making that much money. They're trying their heart out to give it one more shot to make it to the majors.
Ready?
I really love the movie Slapshot. I know it's not, it has its own cult following, but Paul Newman was great in that movie, and I loved the Hanson brothers, and it was just a fun hockey movie.
Well, I don't know. I don't think you know this, or you might have said it, but I actually bought the Johnstown Chiefs in the early 2000s. And that was the real town. The makeup town was called Charleston Chiefs. And the play on that was in 1977 was the team was called the Johnstown Jets. And so the writer, who was actually the sister of one of the players on the team, the screenwriter, wrote it as the Charlestown Chiefs. So CHCH rather than J&J. And so, but that team played in the same arena when I bought the team that our team was playing in. And that's why I did it, because it was a Slapshot team. And it was really fun to be there and look up and see the same organ loft was up there where the guy got hit in the head with the puck in the movie. And you had to jump down the boards. When you came onto the ice from the locker room, you had to jump down about a foot to get onto the ice. And on the bench, when you're coaching, because I coached the last half of the last season there, you're standing on the bench and you put 1 foot in between one player and 1 foot in between two other players, and you stand on the bench with them. There's no behind the bench. Like that's just the way it was built back in the old days. So that I love that movie. It was the town was just like it was in the movie too. I mean, it was a Rust Belt town where the steel industry had moved out. And anyway, I love that movie as well. And I got to know the Hanson brothers. Well, they're not the Hanson brothers. There's only one Hanson, and there's two. The two brothers are Carlsons. And so I got to know them. And I mean, Dave Hanson is still making a living out of being the guy from Slapshot to this day.
So we have the Rochester Americans. We're inducting their announcer, 40-year guy, Don Stevens.
Yeah,
and
I know him.
We did Howard Dolgen from the Syracuse team, Syracuse Crunch. And they're affiliated with Tampa Bay. So when Howard got inducted, we brought Julian Brisbois in, and I made him sing the "O Canada," and he had no idea it was coming, and he wasn't happy, but he sang it. He sang it.
Nobody denies Rene. If he asks you to do something, you do it.
Right. The Rochester Americans are to my mind, are the most famous flagship team of the American Hockey League. That's the team that Don Cherry was on. That's the team that has won umpteen Calder Cups. They've been around forever. I love their uniforms, that red, white, and blue, the Amerks. It's just a tremendous historical franchise.
Neil, I'm a big Islander fan, so I'm going to ask you to put on your scouting hat and tell us about what you see in the future for Matthew Schaefer.
Only good things. I watched him this season, at least 35 games I was at the UBS Arena for, and he's a phenomenal talent, an incredible skater, has incredible vision, good puck skills, can always get the puck through to the net. And it's scary to think of what he's going to be next season. And he's only going to be 19.
Right.
It's really, really amazing. I saw Dennis Potvin as a rookie, and I saw Brian Leach, of course, as a rookie, and I saw Nicholas Lidstrom as a rookie, and they were all different. Every single one of them was different. Matthew Schaefer has physical strength, but he doesn't really have to use it. It's sort of like Hudson on the Canadiens, Lane Hudson, Cale Makar on the Avalanche, Quinn Hughes on the Wild. That's today's modern offensive defensemen. They're slight. They're not big. They physically don't get involved too much. They've got great speed and vision, and nobody kills them like they would have in the old days. Brian Leach and Dennis Potvin had to be built in order to survive. And Bobby Orr too. Bobby Orr fought. People don't remember. Bobby Orr used to fight, like really fight. And so, but today is a new day. It's a new dawn. And Matthew Schaefer's could go right up to the top of the list of defensemen. I would expect that at some point he'll be like Cale Makar.
You mentioned about him being a slightly built guy, but very tough. I've been to a couple of games this year at the UBS Arena, and I've seen how Casey Cizikas and his other teammates would just protect him when other players got physical with Matthew Schaefer.
Oh yeah, and before the show, Rene was asking me about Gretz in Edmonton and people protecting him, and it's the same way. Whenever you have one of these super young talents, everybody better band together and make sure that you look after him, because he is your bread and butter, and you know it because you're in your late 20s or early 30s and he's only 18. He probably doesn't even know how good he is, but you know how good he is, and you need him to win. So I wasn't surprised that everybody jumped in for him as soon as anybody did anything that was uncalled for.
Neil, take us into scouting, and when you see a young player, what is it that you're looking for? First of all, is it the position he plays that you'll look for something specific? Maybe his skating ability or his shooting ability. I mean, what does a Neil Smith look for when he's looking at a player who he thinks going to be a great one?
I think the first thing you look for is skating ability, because without skating ability, it doesn't matter how much good hockey sense you have or how hard you can shoot the puck or how tough you are. If you can't keep up, you're not going to be able to make the NHL. So skating is the number one thing. I think the number two thing is hockey sense. How well do you know the game? Like intuitively know the game, and you can tell that when you're scouting somebody. You can see the vision that they have. And then after that comes all the other ingredients. Is he tough enough? Is he mentally and physically tough enough to be able to handle men when they're going to try to run him through the boards? And that, does he seem out all scared? What is the one thing that he's really good at? Of course, superstars are good at 5 things. And I told young players, just try to be really good at one thing. And if you're the best at one thing, you'll make the NHL. That's who makes the NHL. You might be the best checker. You might be the best penalty killer. You might be the best energy guy, but be something. Don't be a jack of all trades, master of none, because you'll never make the NHL, because the NHL has all their guys are great players in one way or another. But a young player, a junior player, a college player, I'd say that's the order it goes in. You're looking for their skating ability. You're looking for their skill level, of course, but their skill level is divided into a bunch of different things. How well do they, their hockey sense has to be really good. And by hockey sense, I mean, do they see the plays develop? Can you tell they make that good first pass if they're a defenseman? Do they know? Yeah, those are all things you can see if you've watched enough hockey.
Rennie?
Neil, Nicky Fotiu is getting in this year, and I am absolutely amazed at the amount of fans he still has, the way he's followed, and how much he's loved as a Ranger. I'm mystified by it.
Well, he's a cult figure, in my opinion. Like, I was scouting the Rangers for the Islanders when Nick was still on the Rangers. And I remember, and I'll mention this to him when I see him, I remember when the warm-up was over, him throwing pucks up into the blue seats for the blue seat guys, because he said that's where I used to sit. And I remember his skating style and how he charged onto the ice and charged around. And New York likes tough guys. I mean, they really do. They like the guys that stand up for everybody else. Nick did that every night, every game. He wasn't the most talented guy, and I'm sure he would laugh if he heard me say that, but he was a heart and soul guy. And I know for a fact that his teammates all loved him. And I'm not surprised that he's got a big following, because he's an iconic guy from that era.
Another iconic guy, and he only played with the Rangers for a couple of years, is Stefan Matteau, because of Howie Rose's call, Matteau, Matteau, Matteau. But he is loved at the Garden and everywhere he goes. I see interviews, and he's just a fan favorite.
Well, he's a big teddy bear. I kid around with him and say, like, Steph, I mean, you're living a life off one goal. And
But
he
what
is,
a goal.
and he'll say it himself, but he's a sweet man. I've known him since he was 18 years old, and I took him. We were interviewing him for Detroit, and and he can tell you this someday. I took him to a Bon Jovi concert at Joe Louis Arena. He didn't speak a word of English, and later in life, I think after he retired, he actually met Bon Jovi and told Bon Jovi that he was at that concert before he even knew English. And so that's quite funny. But no, everybody loves Steph. He's a good person. I'll tell you a quick one. He is one of the only players that I had. Well, of very few players ever say thank you. They ever say to you, thank you. But Steph Matteau said to me one day, we were coming back, I think, from Pat Brisson's wedding. And he said to me, Neil, I'll always thank you for making me a Ranger. Without you, I don't win the Stanley Cup. I owe you so much. You brought me into the da-da-da-da-da. It was a really humbling thing that he said to me. And it means so much to me to hear that from people, from players, because you do a lot of work to bring them in, and you try to be as good to them as you can. And then sometimes the sport gets in the way and they feel, well, they deserve it all. And they probably do, but you're actually the one that did it. There's a lot of appreciative guys, Adam Graves, Mike Richter, even Mark Messier. There's appreciative guys, but Steph Matteau is special.
Was he an unlikely hero? Did you know? Were you surprised he got the goal?
Well, he got two of them, actually. He got a double overtime game goal in New Jersey, and then he got that one in the Garden, which everybody remembers more than anything because it eliminated the Devils. Yeah, I was surprised. But at that point in overtime, it could be anybody. It's not necessarily a star that gets the overtime goals. It's a lot of times it's we just finished a series watching it with Montreal, and Alex Newhook got a couple of overtime goals, a guy that isn't a household name. But that's what happens in overtime in the playoffs. It's sometimes the most unlikely hero.
Neil, your parents had a lot to do with your beginnings, as parents normally do. But tell us about your parents, and because I heard something where you were talking about your mom and dad, and it was actually, I think, your mom that steered you more towards hockey. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. My mom and dad were World War II Navy veterans. They were in the Navy show, it was called, which is like the USO of Canadian military, and during World War II. And so they were married right as soon as the war ended. They had my sister. They had me 7 years later. And my father was a pianist. That was his thing. He played piano and also had a day job with a TV and appliance repair company that he was a general manager. So when he'd be away on weekends playing piano in bands, back then in the 60s, they had dance bands and all that stuff. My mom and I would sit on the couch and watch Hockey Night in Canada together because she was such a big hockey fan. And she had played hockey in the 30s herself in Winnipeg. So all of a sudden, I'm 10 years old. I'm lying in bed one night. My father had gone into the hospital for a routine checkup and died. And so there I am at 10 years old, and I've just got my sister, my mother, and my grandmother. And when you're 10 years old and one of your parents dies, you're globbing onto the other parent as hard as you can because, you're scared if you ever lose them, what's going to happen to me. So my mother and I, from that time on till the day she died, had this bond about hockey that was always there. That's what we talked about on the phone. And, she was my best friend for all those years that we were together. And it was her that got me into hockey. And it was probably because of her that I kept going no matter what happened to me. I kept pushing to try to stay in hockey because I didn't want to lose that connection to my mom. And she was there, as I told you, on the night we won the Stanley Cup, which I'm very proud of that she got to see that. And it was just, it was very special upbringing for me. And my mom was at every game I ever played up until the end of junior B when I moved away to play, and she couldn't go then. But I'll tell you a funny story. She, in 1990, I was GM the first year, I think. And she calls me like she normally would. And she goes, "Oh, you know what they're saying here in Toronto?" I said, "No, what are they saying now?" "Oh, they're saying that you're going to trade away Sandstrom and Granato for Nichols." What a stupid thing that is. I said, "Well, I hate to tell you, Mom, I am going to do that." So but we were very, very, very close. I couldn't be closer.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, and then you, of course, you played college hockey, and then, so when does the decision happen that you're playing in the minors? I ask this of many professional athletes when they're thinking of retiring, or they decide to go into something other than playing. And I mean, I can't imagine you being any more successful as a player than you have been in management. So your skills were definitely honed for what you ended up doing. But when do you finally say, you know what, I'm not going to keep chasing the dream of being an NHL hockey player? I'm going to go in a different direction.
Well, that had something to do with my mother too, because my mother was saying to me near the end of that last season I was playing, she says, "Come on, you got to get into a profession here. You got to get moving and get a career going. You can't be doing this stuff." And because I wasn't anywhere near being brought up for NHL games, not even light years away from that. So it was tough, and I was very depressed about it, to be honest with you. That first winter that I didn't play hockey, I didn't know what I was. Like, I'd gone from the time I was, 8 years old, I was a hockey player. I was always a hockey player. That's what I loved, and that's what I do. In school, I'd write that on my school books and go home and play in the snow, play with my friends and ball hockey, and on and on and on. And suddenly, bang, you're not a hockey player anymore. And you know that from now on, whenever you want to play, you're going to have to pay to play. and you're going to have to buy your own sticks and skates and stuff. But I kept pushing. And as I told you the story, I was working in another job in New York, and that was in 1980. I was 26, and I thought this job up, and I made it up, and I got to do it with the Islanders and Al Arbor, and very, very fortunate. But again, I did it for free. I was smart enough to say, like, I really don't care about money. All I care about is, can I somehow stay in hockey? Can I be in the NHL? What can I do? And imagine getting this opportunity with the Islanders, who are right in the middle of a dynasty. And so I've gone from this, flunky minor league player to all of a sudden I'm working with Al Arbor. So I was very fortunate, very blessed in a lot of regards.
Rene?
So in 1980, I was 24. I was living in Lake Placid over my Irish drugstore, and I was the Xerox Corporation rep to the games. And all that leading up to the games, there was this buzz in the village about, everyone was optimistic about Eric Heiden and the hockey team. But when they started playing, they got in a roll. And this year we have Kenny Morrow and Steve Janaszak coming. And these guys are still best friends after 44 years, 44 years. I'm sorry. Best friends. They text every day. They talk all the time. And there's real affection among these guys. Can't wait to meet Kenny this year, winner of 4 cups. He's been scheduled to come up for a couple of years, and he's had his plane flight canceled twice. So I told him this year, come to New York, I'll drive and get you. And he goes, I'll be there. I'll be there. Just a bunch of great guys.
Well, I got to tell you, Rene, and I've told this I gave a speech to Western Michigan University team because that's my alma mater. And I was there being inducted into a Circle of Honor or something. And I said to them, I know you all probably can't wait to get to the next level. You want to get to pro. You want to see how far you can go. But I said, the guys you're sitting in this room with, these are going to be your best friends for life. And the reason is because you're all equal now, right now. You've all don't have any money. You probably got a used car your parents gave you. You're arguing about who's going to pay for pizza. But I said, down the road, you'll still be friends with them. And I really believe those guys on the 1980 Olympic team were just a bunch of college guys that worked their ass off. They all hated Brooks for a long time, which is what he intended them to do so they could rally around themselves. And I could see it that Kenny would be more attached to the Bowling Green and U.S. Olympic guys than even to the Islander players, because that's pro. And that's, now you're a family man. Now you're probably a father. You've got a wife. You've got, a house in Garden City. You've got all these different things. And life, doesn't go together as well as it does when you're that amateur level. When we were friends, when I didn't have anything. And so I get it with Janaszak and Kenny. I can't wait to see them.
Did you ever meet Herb? Did you know Herb?
Yeah, I did. I knew Herb because I worked for Pittsburgh as a consultant for a while for Craig Patrick and Herb Brooks. Of course, and Craig were very, very close. And I had dinner with Herb one night. So I did get to talk to him quite a bit. And then he had that untimely death where, coming back from that golf outing or whatever it was, they told me that he didn't like wearing a seatbelt. And that's what did him in, I guess, was the car accident without a seatbelt on.
Did you like him?
Very much. Yeah. Well, I also admired him, and he was nice to me. I mean, we were both in management at the time, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I had at that time had already won the cup with the Rangers, and I'm sure he, admired that. And so we got along. I thought we got along real well. And of course, our common denominator was Craig Patrick, who we both loved.
Getting back to the championship team, you had 2 pretty good goalies, Mike Richter and Glenn Healy. Looking at the stats, Glenn Healy really had a lot more assists than Mike Richter that year. He had 2, and Mike Richter had none. But still, What a goalie tandem, and obviously we know hockey, a lot of great scorers, but if you don't have a hot goaltender, you're not going to win.
Well, I got to tell you, that summer before the 93-94 season, Islanders left Glenn Healy unprotected, and they had a waiver draft, or not a waiver draft, an expansion draft. Tampa Bay was involved, and Espo called me and said, are you interested in Healy? Because I can pick him if you'll give me this or that. And I said, yeah, please do that, because I had lost Van Beesbrook. And so Glenn Healy came in and was the perfect guy for Mike Richter. I can't say enough about him. I mean, he was, at first, we weren't even sure who was going to be number one, because Glenn had a great career with the Islanders and beat us all the time. So he came in, but he was the type of guy that whatever way it had to go, he was there for the team. And of course, Mike Richter is one of the best people you'll meet. He's a very intelligent guy. He's he'll talk your ear off, but he is so they were a great tandem. And Mike Richter was phenomenal that season and other seasons as well. But he was the guy we needed to get there. You can't get there without a good goaltender.
Exactly. Was there any other player that you wanted to get that you just couldn't get?
Oh, I'm sure there was guys that were out there that we might have tried to get over the years and couldn't. I mean, I remember trying to sign Ron Francis one summer, and he went back to the Carolina Hurricanes to finish his career off there. And I remember calling him and saying, "Come on, Ronnie, do you want to be driving a pickup truck? Come on to New York, where we ride in limos." Just kidding. But I don't really remember. It's hard. You don't remember those. Like there's probably a lot of them out there that I tried and couldn't get. No, I remember a few, but not a lot.
When people introduce you, they probably usually start with 1994. But looking back on your career, what's the accomplishment you're most proud of that has nothing to do with winning any Stanley Cups?
Oh boy. As I said, I think signing Wayne Gretzky, getting Wayne to come to New York and putting a Ranger jersey on him was one of the thrills of my hockey life. I'd say the other thing, I used to tell him, and he's not with me anymore, but I used to tell my son that the Stanley Cup was the second best thing that ever happened to me. You were the best thing that ever happened. He was my only child. And I think if I had to say what's the most important thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, it would be the birth of my son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ready?
Were you surprised, Neil, when I gave you the call?
No, I was shocked. I didn't know who you were. And I was like, wow, I think you left a message. And I was like, wow. Because, to be honest with you, and I'm very proud of that call you made. There's been people for years say to me, like, well, why aren't you in this place? Why aren't you in that place? Why don't you get for example, the Lester Patrick Award, which is sort of unbelievable that I haven't gotten that when most of my players on the 94 team, the top players got it. And I was around the Rangers for 11 years and haven't gotten it. But, you don't think about it from day to day, because if you thought about it, you'd get down, because you think, okay, I've accomplished a lot. Why aren't people calling me and asking me, telling me I'm going in this or going in that? And what I found out, Rene, other than your call, which, you and I hadn't talked before, and Mike Smith, you told me, was involved, I've nearly never had anybody reach out and say, hey, we recognize what you've done and we want to give you an award for doing that. It's, a lot of people get these awards because they self-promote, and I don't self-promote. Like I refuse to do that, to go around telling people what I was and what I did, and how I don't even think how good I am because I don't think about that. But like I just find that a lot of the people that end up in these, not yours, but end up in maybe the Hockey Hall of Fame, the real one, they just had people, they got people to push for them, whether they really deserved it or not was up for anybody else's opinion. But I've never done that yet. I know my wife is on me about getting going on the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I'm always shy about it.
So my company, this is our 37th Hall of Fame induction. Basketball 17, baseball 15, 5 in hockey, and we have a separate board for each Hall of Fame. But one of the things that distinguishes us, and both Len and Jeff have come to other Hall of Fames that we've had, is that our Hall of Fame isn't based on statistics. We don't rank anybody in baseball by home runs or strikeouts. It's a gentleman's Hall of Fame. It's a legacy Hall of Fame. And each year in each sport, I have over 100 names of eligible candidates for induction. And it's much less political than Cooperstown, say, in baseball.
Yeah.
But we take pride. We do this every day of the year. We constantly go over this list. And I was thrilled to make that phone call to you. And, it's sort of a dream for me because I was right there with you in 94 when you won the Cup. And here we are inducting you this year. So it'll be a real thrill for me to shake your hand.
Well, it's going to be a thrill for me. I've thought a lot about this, and Don Maloney was my assistant GM in New York. He was out of work, and he applied. Larry Plow had gone to St. Louis, and I thought, well, this is perfect. Don Maloney was a Ranger. He was a great Ranger. He was the GM of the Islanders, and so him and I had a great relationship for the years that we worked together there. Dave Maloney, I've known quite a while, not as well as Don, because Don was my assistant. Also drafted by the Islanders, like me, played for Bowling Green against me. I followed his career. And then when he got to he was on the 80 Olympic team. I was like, I thrilled that he won that. And then he went to the Islanders in the 4 straight cups. And it's like, holy moly, this is Ken Morrow. I've always been a big fan of his, and he's one of the best, classiest gentlemen that you'll ever find. So I'm looking really forward to seeing him, and I'm really happy that I get this honor with people that I really like and that I could speak about myself. So that's what's really fun about this as well.
Neil, what I love about hockey, and this is not to disparage any other sport, but when the hockey players get on the ice, they can't take any time off. They can't, just relax. They got to go all out and play, and that's what makes it such a great game and so exciting. And obviously, the playoffs are just above and beyond where they go all out, and then they shake each other's hands after the last game, which is sportsmanship to the nth degree. So that's what I love about hockey. You mentioned you spent a little time with the Islanders before the Rangers. My favorite player, great goal scorer, Mike Bossy. Tell us about Mike Bossy and how he is in the echelon of all goal scorers.
I can tell you a lot about Mike Bossy that people don't know from the management standpoint, and that is that the year that Mike Bossy was drafted, there was a great player in the OHL, led the league in scoring, named Dwight Foster. He had quite a long career in the NHL as well. And it came down to the Islanders pick, and the Ontario people wanted Dwight Foster, and the Quebec people wanted this kid, Michel Bossy, which, if you remember, when he first got there, they called him Michel Bossy, and he said, no, I'm Mike Bossy. And Henry Saraceno was the scout for the Islanders in the Quebec League, and he went to every single Monday night. Monday night was the home night for Laval. And Mike Bossy played for Laval and scored all those goals. And so at the table, Al Arbor was listening to both the conversation back and forth about who they were going to pick. And he said, give me the guy that can score the goals. I can teach him how to check, but I can't teach the guy that can check how to score goals. So his release was amazingly quick, and that's why he was able to get so many goals. He loved to score goals. Him and Trotz were such a dynamic duo. Died way too early, unfortunately. I think was a smoker, and probably that led to his demise. But just an amazing player of that era. Like, just, wasn't a tough guy or anything. There's another guy that, wasn't going to fight, but they had enough people around. They had Clark Gillies to come out if you did anything to Mike Bossy. So again, it's sad. I go to all the Islander games, and I'm right behind all the retired numbers. And when I see a few of them that are past now, it makes me sad because Bill Torrey, Al Arbor, Mike Bossy, it's luckily we've still got Dennis, we've still got Trotz, we've still got Billy Smith, we still got Butch Goring, we still got Bobby Nystrom. So we still got a lot of them, but they actually, you could have, I think there was 14 players that were on all 4 cup winners.
That sounds about right.
You could have 14 retired numbers. I mean, who wins 4 straight cups and doesn't get his number retired?
Right.
But you can't retire everybody.
Right.
John Ledecky asked me to induct all the guys that run all 4 cups. And we may do it in the future, but several of those guys are already in. Billy Smith came last year, and you couldn't have met a nicer guy. He was like your uncle or your grandfather. He was so friendly, and I was sort of surprised because we did all the research, and I knew what a competitor he was on the ice. And Dennis had nominated him, and Dennis had come the year before, and he actually stuck around in town and hung out with me. We went to a friend's house for barbecue, went to the mineral baths in Saratoga Springs, and Dennis was just a regular guy, and after the dinner's over on the 12th, from when we closed, we had like an after Oscars party. Bobby Nystrom held court that night and told the funniest stories about egging on Clark to fight. And I asked him, I still don't understand why Teeps dumped the puck in the corner. And Nystrom goes, that was easy. Tonelli was going to come out with it. Like, we always knew if Tonelli was on the ice, he'd get the puck. Yeah. But these guys were, they've all come. They've all been fantastic. And they all are, they didn't even think twice about it. Yes, Rene will come. Thank you so much. We'll be there. And they've all been wonderful guys.
They're all humble guys. I mean, I still see Trotz a lot. I see, Dennis hasn't come the last couple of years, and then I used to see Clark, and I've seen Billy Smith a couple of times. They're all humble guys. They're all just, I love going to the games and seeing them. And I got to tell you, as much as I get all that fame from the Rangers, I'm more at home with the Islanders because of all those guys and the way they treated me and the way they still treat me like I'm part of it. And I really love that.
We think that, John's asked me to have the Hall of Fame at UBS Arena. So we're trying to find space to put it in, but it was his suggestion. He offered it. So we're in the discussion about that, Jay Bieberman, and that may happen.
Oh.
We are speaking to Neil Smith. And Neil, the fact that you are not in the Hockey Hall of Fame, at first when I see that, I was shocked because based on what you've contributed to this game and what you've done, it's surprising that you're not in. But then you mentioned it in the beginning of the show. So many of your accomplishments are in New York. And now you're getting into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame. And I may be biased, okay, I'll confess to a little bias, but I think that you are getting into the Hall of Fame that actually is perfect for you, because what you have done for New York hockey is not, it's incredible. So the fact that you're being recognized in the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame, it's an honor, and it's an honor that you join that Hall of Fame, and we congratulate you. It's wonderful having you on the show. if Rennie or Jeff have anything else to ask, I was going to wrap, but if they have anything else, I will certainly, give them last questions or whatever. But I just want to tell you that it is an honor to have you on the show with us. And congratulations on your soon-to-be induction into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Well, I can talk to you for hours, but it's getting late here on the East Coast, so Neil will let you go. It was wonderful, and congratulations. Len said it all, so congratulations on going to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Well, if I can give you one last word about my feelings about something that I haven't talked about yet. I am so blown away and proud that I got to be part of New York. I grew up in Toronto, Ontario. To me, New York City was always this mythical place that was the center of the universe. And New York State, being right next door to Ontario, when you go through to Buffalo and so on. We always watched New York TV. Growing up in the 60s, it was all antenna TV. And New York Yankee games. And I'm a Yankee fan because of my childhood with Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris and Tony Kubek and on and on and on. And I remember getting an award in the city that they gave me the 34th Street Man of the Year, something like that. And I said, what a thrill this is. And I meant every word of this, and I mean what I'm saying. What a thrill. I'm getting an award for a street that the Empire State Building is on. Like, how crazy is that? The most famous building in the world. And I get to have an award from there. So I just want to say to you, the most famous state maybe in the world, and certainly the most famous city within the state. So great they named it twice. It's just such an honor, and I'm so proud of myself that I was able to make it in New York, because like the Frank Sinatra song says, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, you certainly made it in New York, that's for sure. Neil, thank you so much for joining us on the New York State's Hall of Fame podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Neil, we'll see you on July 12th. And It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of warmth and magic and love in the room. We're so glad you're coming.
Well, I can't wait. I wonder if is the hotel pet friendly?
I don't know. I can find out for you, though.
Yeah, or I'll call her anyways. But thanks, guys. I appreciate all this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.